Here's what's coming up on Retirement Talk with Sandy Morris.
Today on the show, we're going to talk about my most favorite subject, and that's hybrid annuities. And I have a lot of these myself.
All right, this is part two of a two-part series, and if you remember from last week, we were talking about mutual funds. Man, oh man, lots of questions out there.
What is the difference between the Roth and the regular IRAs?
Both of them are IRAs. There's a Roth IRA, and then there's an IRA.
I want to spend a couple minutes and share with you a situation that I had recently in my office. I had met with someone that might not be unlike a lot of our viewers right now. It was someone that had recently retired. They were in their early 60s, and they wanted to make sure that they had their retirement assets in the appropriate places so that they could have guaranteed income to last them the rest of their lives.
And now the host of Retirement Talk, Sandy Morris.
Welcome to our show today. We have 30 minutes worth of action-packed information that's designed specifically for you. Stay with us because Retirement Talk starts right here, right now. On the show, we're going to talk about my most favorite subject, and that's hybrid annuities, and I have a lot of these myself. So if you're an individual that likes to have gains of the market, but you don't like the volatility, this might be an account that would work for you, but it is a case-by-case basis. So let me explain to you how a hybrid annuity works. First of all, a hybrid annuity is very, very much like a CD in that it pays interest. But instead of a CD, you can either get those from 3 months all the way to 5 years, and you can basically only take interest out in those. A hybrid annuity typically is a 10-year account. And every year you can take 10% of your account value out. Now, you can have more money out, you can take more money out, but if you take more money out, they're going to just charge you an interest penalty on the excess. So because they're going to have your money for a 10-year period and you're not going to take out more than 10% a year, what they're going to do is they're going to give you a bonus on your money when you open up your account. So let's say you have $500,000 that you put in this account. They're going to give you, and different annuities, they pay different bonuses up front. But I'm going to use an 8% bonus. So you're really going to start out with $540,000 day one. So any interest that you make on this account from this day forward is going to be not on $500,000, it's going to be on $540,000. So the way we link your gains to the stock market is inside the account, they give you options on how you can have your gains calculated. You can use a fixed interest rate account, which will increase as interest rates increase. But if you want market returns, you can link your account to the S&P or the Dow or the NASDAQ, and they have different formulas that they use on those indexes. For instance, if you link your $540,000 to the S&P, they'll take a snapshot of the index every month. And no matter how much it goes up, let's say it goes up 4% 1 month, they give you a percentage of that. Now let's say they give you 2%. Let's say the next month the market goes up 10% or the S&P goes up 10%, you're only going to get 2. And the next month, let's say it doesn't go up, it goes down. So you get the negative. Bottom line is, at the end of the year, they calculate it monthly, and at the end of the year, they add up the numbers, the positive numbers, subtract the negative, and that's the amount of return that you got in your account. So the amount of interest that you got for your account. So let's just say, for simplicity reasons, that you had a 10% return, okay? Well, you just made $54,000. So if you have $540,000 and you made $54,000, you have $594,000. You now can take 10% out of that $594,000. And every year, this happens again and again and again. But when you say, Sandy, what if you have a negative year? Well, if you have a negative year where all of these returns are negative, then you may just get a zero, but you still keep your $594,000. Kind of nice, huh? So it gets better. No matter what happens, you can't lose money in this account. And at the end of the 10 years, okay, you can take that money and you can do whatever you want to with it. You can leave it here. I have clients that leave that money here. It just means that you can take all the money out or as much as you want, and you don't have to pay a penalty on that excess. But this is what makes the hybrid annuity a hybrid annuity, in that there's a rider that you can put on this account. And for a fee, typically around less than 1%, it can guarantee you a minimum return of interest, such as 7% every year. And the way you take this income out, of course, is in a form of lifetime income. So what it does is every year, it'll look at the amount, your account value over here. It'll look at your account value over here. And if you want to start lifetime income, it'll base your lifetime income on the higher of the two. If you want to take 10% out, it comes out of this amount. But if you want to start lifetime income, it'll look at both sides, whichever one is highest, it'll let you take lifetime income out. Also, the neat thing about this is, if you don't want that income, you can stop this income at any time, and you can go back and have control of your money that you put in there. So, unlike a pension, when you turn on your pension and you take your pension for life, you can't stop that. You lose control of that lump sum of money. And in here, you don't. You don't have to annuitize it like you used to have to do in the past and take lifetime income, and if you passed away, the insurance company got the money. That's not the way that it works anymore. So this is a hybrid annuity, and if you'd like to have some information on this, please feel free to visit our website or give us a call at the office to see if one of these accounts might work best for you.
You're watching Retirement Talk with Sandy Morris, Tampa Bay's retirement television.
It's your retirement. How will you live it? How will you be remembered?
Will you be able to send me an invitation? Will you be there for my ball games? Will you teach me your values? Will you be able to play with me? Oh, help me go to college. How will I remember you?
Have the retirement you dream about. SandyMorrisFinancial.com.
Having no clear retirement plan is a mistake I see a lot in my financial planning office when I meet with someone new. It's extremely rare that someone comes in and has a clearly defined income plan for his or her retirement. Now, one way you can get a clearly defined retirement income plan is to talk to an independent financial advisor who specializes in retirement planning, not someone who specializes in getting you to retirement, but someone who's dedicated to get you through your retirement. So if you don't have a clear retirement plan, then be one of the first 5 callers and you'll receive a free, complete planning review. There's no obligation and there's no cost if you've saved at least $250,000 for retirement. Here's what you'll receive: a free report to sort through your current advisor's cost, a tailored plan to guard your investments, a tax analysis to reduce the liability and increase your cash flow, and a custom income plan to boost your retirement. Plus, you'll receive a budget assessment to help manage your cash flow. So call now for your free, no obligation financial review.
You're watching Retirement Talk with Sandy Morris, Tampa Bay's retirement television. All right, this is part 2 of a 2-part series, and if you remember from last week, we were talking about mutual funds. Man, oh man, lots of questions out there. So Sandy, I'm going to get started with you right now. How do these fees affect the average investor? I know this is a sore topic. How do those fees affect the average investor?
Well, it has a huge effect on the investor, because let's face it, if you're thinking that you're not paying anything in fees, and then all of a sudden you look up and just your expense ratios are between 2 and 3%. And then you just found out that you bought an A share, and that A share is somewhere between 4 and 5%. And you got a 5% return. Well, if you add those fees onto that 5% return, doesn't take much to see.
You went Greek on me on that. The A share. Tell me more about this. What's
Okay,
going on?
sorry
with
about that.
Sure.
When you buy a mutual fund, you have to pay when you go in. You have to buy them. Those are called share prices, A, B, or C's, and we'll talk about that a little later. But that's the cost. That's a cost. And then you also have what's internal costs, which are called expense ratios. And those can run anywhere from 1% to 3%. I've seen them even higher. So if you get a 5% return and you look at what it costs you, you can actually see that you could have probably doubled the return had you not had those expenses, but you don't see them.
So in effect, I could have gotten a 5% return, and I had a 3% fee on it, and basically I got 2% on that.
You got it.
Wow, how about that? Sandy, I got another follow-up for you. What are these loads I hear you talk about? Because you talk about it on your radio show quite often.
That's what we were talking about, the A, B, or C shares. So A shares, typically you pay up front for those, and they're 3, 4, 5%, somewhere in there. It just depends on how many shares you buy. Then you have B shares that you pay, and if you get out of the mutual funds, typically within a 6-year period, they charge you for getting out of the mutual fund. And then you have C shares, which is, I don't see a lot of these, but when you see a lot of these are the most costly because you pay over time while
Sandy,
you have
how would
them.
I know that on my statement
You
when I
don't
get
know
it?
this. You
So
don't know
okay,
this.
now I want to call my advisor and ask a question. So how would I phrase this question to my advisor? Do I have A, B, or C shares in my mutual fund?
Yes.
Is that essentially it, Steve? I would do it just like that?
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
And then write it down and call me, and I'll tell you what that means.
Okay, here's another one. And I'm going to give this to you, Sandy. If you look over the performance of mutual funds since their inception, how they compare to the market overall, because there's a lot of studies out there, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that for the most part, the vast majority of mutual funds are not meeting their index as far as the performance. So they're actually underachieving. Is that correct?
Yeah, there are different studies out there, but typically there's only been like less than 5% of the mutual funds that have ever outperformed their benchmarks, the S&P. Yeah, that's pretty incredible, considering the amount of people that are in mutual funds.
And what you also find, Mark, is that actively managed funds, which will have the higher expense ratios and things like that, are actually have underperformed the more passive as well. So you're paying more fees, and then they're not keeping up with their benchmarks.
Well, you know what I like to talk about here is that there are alternatives that you can, if you want to get involved with the index. Steve, tell me more about that. There are less expensive ways to get involved, correct?
Yeah, you can buy what's called just an index fund, which really what you're doing is, say, for the S&P, you would buy an index fund that holds all the 500 stocks in the S&P, and your expense ratio is a lot lower because there's no real management in there, active management. So that's what makes it a lower expense.
Or
Is
you
that
could
an
use an
ETF?
S&P ETF.
Yeah,
You could use an ETF.
You beat me to the punch, Sandy.
Yeah, you
So
could
tell
use
me
those.
about
And
ETFs.
those are it's just less costly. ETFs are less costly. They do track a stock market index typically. You can buy all kinds of ETFs, but they're not as expensive. They don't create as much tax consequence and don't have the tax effect that a mutual fund has. It's just a up-to-date way of investing and diversifying and not having the costs and the expense and the volatility that a mutual fund
Let's
has.
talk about the taxes, because before the show, we were going through all of our notes here. I started to read about the taxation that can, not always, but can be involved with mutual funds, and it could be a bit extraordinary.
Well, you can explain to them, Steve, about what happened to a lot of people in 2008.
Well, actually, I just had a client recently where that is the case. The main issue is when the taxes comes about is when mutual funds inside them, the fund itself has a capital gain, and you might not have held the fund very long, but you're participating in that tax liability. So if that fund pays out a capital gain distribution, for example, it's not something you collect, but you have to pay the taxes on that fund. So you could have actually lost money in the fund and then paid tax as well.
There's nothing I like more than paying Uncle Sam.
Yes, especially on money you didn't make, right? Yeah. Well, in a mutual fund, you have to pass the taxes on to the shareholders. You have to pass the taxes on to the investors. So the losses, the gains, you have to pass all that on. Whether they participated in it or not, they still have to reap the consequences of the gain or the loss. That's the way it works.
I've got a minute left, and I want to get into this because it's really important, and that's bonds and bond mutual funds, bond funds. They are not the same. Correct. Sandy, you want this one or Steve?
Go ahead and take it, Steve.
Yeah,
You're the bond guy.
Thanks. Yeah, with the bond, the main difference is bonds have a state of maturity, Mark, where say it's 20 years out, and as when that bond comes to maturity, you'll get all your principal back and receive interest along the way. Now with bond funds, there's really no maturity date inside of there, so you're not going to get, after 20 years, for example, you might not have all your principal there and things like that. And also, what mutual funds can do, they can leverage. Where they can increase their yield and pass on costs to the investors as well, and leverage their increase the yield to pay for fees and expenses, which can up the risk for the investor.
Great advice. Thanks, Steve. All right, everybody, stick around. We got a lot of great stuff to come. You're watching Retirement Talk with Sandy Morris. We'll be right back. You're watching Retirement Talk with Sandy Morris, Tampa Bay's retirement television.
Having no clear retirement plan is a mistake I see a lot in my financial planning office when I meet with someone new. It's extremely rare that someone comes in and has a clearly defined income plan for his or her retirement. Now, one way you can get a clearly defined retirement income plan is to talk to an independent financial advisor who specializes in retirement planning, not someone who specializes in getting you to retirement, but someone who's dedicated to get you through your retirement. So if you don't have a clear retirement plan, then be one of the first 5 callers and you'll receive a free, complete planning review. There's no obligation and there's no cost if you've saved at least $250,000 for retirement. Here's what you'll receive: a free report to sort through your current advisor's costs, a tailored plan to guard your investments, a tax analysis to reduce the liability and increase your cash flow, and a custom income plan to boost your retirement. Plus, you'll receive a budget assessment to help manage your cash flow. So call now for your free, no obligation financial review.
You're watching Retirement Talk with Sandy Morris, Tampa Bay's retirement television.
I'm 67 years old, and I have all my money and retirement money invested pretty much in the stock market, mainly in stocks. I did pull out about a year ago 33% of my total portfolio and put it into cash, which is only earning a lousy 1%. But do you think this market I should be fully invested all the time into the stock market? Because it cost me a lot of money when I pulled that cash out.
Dennis, it sounds to me like you're letting your emotions run you when it comes to the stock market. And when the stock market's going down, you're pulling out, and when the stock market goes up, you want to be in. And the truth of the matter is there's no way you can time the market. If being in the market is something that makes you very nervous, then at 67, you might want to consider some accounts, different accounts that you can use. And just like I've told other people, you might want to consider maybe having some kind of hybrid annuity account, or that where the stock market goes up, you get really good gains, but if the stock market goes down, it doesn't take back what you've made. You might want to also consider putting some stop losses on your stocks or your investments if you have those. But buying in and out of the market or getting in and out of the market like that is what you're doing is completely, you're running on emotion, and I've never found that to be very beneficial.
What is the difference between the Roth and the regular IRAs?
Both of them are IRAs. There's a Roth IRA and then there's an IRA. All it means is that a Roth IRA means that when you put the money in, you paid the tax on it. So the growth is not taxable to you when you take it out. So when you're taking money in the future out of your Roth IRA, you don't pay any tax on that. An IRA, when you take money out in the future, you're taxed on all the money that comes out of there.
You're watching Retirement Talk with Sandy Morris, Tampa Bay's retirement television.
It's your retirement. How will you live it? How will you be remembered?
Will you be able to take me on vacation? Will you be there for my ball games? Will you teach me your values? You'll be able to play with me. Oh, help me go to college. How will I remember you?
Have the retirement you dream about. SandyMorrisFinancial.com.
Remember when life was simpler? When things didn't move quite so fast, and the world didn't seem so complex? Remember that? We do. And as the world around us has continued to speed up, becoming more complicated, and still a bit uncertain, we have managed to keep things simple, providing sound, easy-to-understand financial advice and customized roadmaps for the road ahead, from tax reduction strategies, investment advice, and guaranteed retirement income you cannot outlive, backed by the claims-paying ability of insurance companies. We can be your single point of contact, a single call, a voice you recognize well, and a partner who can be by your side for the entire journey. We can't stop the world around us, but we can help ensure you're prepared for what's to come. To schedule a no-obligation meeting, simply contact us today.
You're watching Retirement Talk with Sandy Morris, Tampa Bay's retirement television.
Welcome back. And now my colleague, best-selling author and financial advisor, Mr. Matt Dickin.
I want to spend a couple minutes and share with you a situation that I had recently in my office. I had met with someone that might not be unlike a lot of our viewers right now. It was someone that had recently retired. They were in their early 60s, and they wanted to make sure that they had their retirement assets in the appropriate places so that they could have guaranteed income to last them the rest of their lives. Now, this particular individual had about $800,000 in retirement assets. That was broken down to $600,000 was invested in bonds and $200,000 was invested in stocks. Now, rather than using individual bonds and individual stocks, they were relying on mutual funds, and that was the breakdown that they had. Now, those that watch us here on the show know that we talk about the rule of 100 all the time. And this particular individual was mistaken. They thought that they were adhering to the rule of 100. And again, briefly, the rule of 100 says whatever your age is, that's the percentage of your retirement assets that should be safe and protected from losses. And then the difference between your age and the number 100 is the maximum percentage of your retirement assets that you should have at risk only if you're comfortable with risk. So this particular individual really thought that they had as much as 75% of their money safe because that's the percentage that they had invested in bond funds, which in reality, bond funds certainly are not safe and do not meet that definition. We'll agree that they're safer than individual stocks and individual stock funds, but certainly bond funds have risks, they have lost value in the past, and they can certainly lose value again in the future. Now, this particular individual on their retirement portfolio was earning approximately $30,000 per year of income, which was making things a little bit tight. They were trying to see if there was any way that they could maybe increase their income. Now, that's what they were getting from their retirement assets. Obviously, they had a little bit of Social Security to add on top of that. And when we analyzed their portfolio, we found that they were paying almost $16,000 per year in fees. It was right at about 2% on their $800,000. So they were losing a significant sum of money each and every year. And they really felt like there wasn't much more that could be done differently or anything else that could be done better. So what we did is we analyzed the portfolio and we came back and made a few recommendations for them. There was actually a few things that we could come back that would increase the amount of income that they were generating, reduce the amount that they were having to pay in fees, and actually reduce the overall level of risk that they had. So what we recommended was that they take the $600,000 that they had invested in bond funds and roll that over to an index annuity that we work with from time to time. So they invested $600,000 into the index annuity, and then we took the $200,000 that was in their stock mutual funds, and we invested that into a managed money portfolio with third-party money managers. This was actually able then we were able to increase their income for this particular individual from $30,000 per year up to about $45,000 per year, so about 50% more of income. More importantly, we moved them into adhering with the rule of 100. So after we had processed the rollovers for them, they had about 75% of their money safe, which was actually a little more than what we recommend, but this particular individual wanted to be very, very conservative. And we basically cut their fee structure in half. They went from paying a little more than $16,000 per year to actually paying a little bit less than $8,000 per year. And that's one of the big reasons why they were actually able to increase their income. The other thing that we were able to do for them is the income they were generating will now be guaranteed for the rest of their lives. So for as long as they live, that income will never go down. It might go up over time depending on the underlying performance of their investments, but they don't ever have to worry about it being dropped or reduced at any point in the future. So The income's now guaranteed for life. We were able to increase it. One of the reasons why we were able to do that is because we reduced their overall fee structure, and at the end of the day, they were in a much safer position. So a lot of times we'll get questions from individuals, well, Matt, how does your firm help, or what is it that you can do for me, or sometimes individuals will think, well, I've already done my retirement planning, I've just got to write it out, I'm kind of stuck with it, there's nothing that can be done to improve upon it. A lot of times when we analyze situations, we'll find that there are little things that can be changed or tweaked. Sometimes we've got to make large rollovers or changes, but the vast majority of the time we can share with individuals ways that they can reduce their overall fee structure, maybe reduce the amount of risk that they're taking, and hopefully at the end of the day, increase the amount of income that they're generating. So if you have questions about this particular case or any questions in general about your specific planning that you might be doing right now, don't hesitate to give us a call there at the office and/or visit our website.
You're watching Retirement Talk with Sandy Morris, Tampa Bay's retirement television.
Having no clear retirement plan is a mistake I see a lot in my financial planning office when I meet with someone new. It's extremely rare that someone comes in and has a clearly defined income plan for his or her retirement. Now, one way you can get a clearly defined retirement income plan is to talk to an independent financial advisor who specializes in retirement planning, not someone who specializes in getting you to retirement, but someone who's dedicated to get you through your retirement. So if you don't have a clear retirement plan, then be one of the first 5 callers and you'll receive a free, complete planning review. There's no obligation and there's no cost if you've saved at least $250,000 for retirement. Here's what you'll receive: a free report to sort through your current advisor's costs, a tailored plan to guard your investments, a tax analysis to reduce the liability and increase your cash flow, and a custom income plan to boost your retirement. Plus, you'll receive a budget assessment to help manage your cash flow. So call now for your free, no obligation financial review.
It's your retirement. How will you live it? How will you be remembered?
Will you be able to take me on vacation? Will you be there for my ball games? Will you teach me your values? You'll be able to play with me. Oh, help me go to college. How will I remember you?
Have the retirement you dream about. SandyMorrisFinancial.com.
You're watching Retirement Talk with Sandy Morris, Tampa Bay's retirement television.
Well, thank you for watching our show today. And remember, if you have any questions, you can visit us on our website or feel free to give our office a call. And remember, you only retire once, so let's get it right the first time. We'll see you next week.